All right, let's get into our first topic now. And is immigration good or bad for Britain? I want your calls in for this one now. More than a third of people in the UK think that immigration has had a negative impact on society. That's according to a YouGov poll by Sky News. 43% said it had a negative impact on British society compared to 35% who said it had a positive impact. Now, younger people were more likely to view it as positive, but when it came down to the economic benefits, 39% of people thought it was good and 37% of people thought it had a negative impact. The people surveyed said that if immigration was cut, then NHS hospitality at universities and social care would suffer, but that cutting it would have a positive impact on housing. So with all that in mind, we'd love to know your thoughts on it. 0207 862 2222 is the number. JJ, what's your thoughts? Immigration generally positive or negative in Britain?
Generally positive, of course. This country has been founded on immigration, no matter how far we go back. If you have someone who claims that they are British originally and there's nothing else in their blood but Britain.
Through and through.
Well, go back through and through. You'll find you're probably from Scandinavia. This country has been built on immigration. There's a difference between immigrants and migrants, which I think people get confused about, and they just lump it all in together. There's also a difference between illegal immigration and the Ukraine refugees who Boris Johnson paid British people to take in and come here, quote unquote, legally. So I think the whole argument is conflated and confused. When people say, is it a good thing or bad thing for the country? Some people in this country feel like our government and the opposition Labour have let them down and don't listen to what they're saying. Some people feel that if they say immigration's bad, that people are going to call them racists. And it's for that reason, they're going to say, well, immigration's been a bad thing. It's no good. It's no good. But the NHS, our social care system, the people who work on jobs who come here temporarily, migrants come here temporarily to do the picking of berries, the jobs that British people don't want to do. Of course we need migration for that. So I think overall, I think it's definitely a good thing.
When it comes to our labour force, I mean, I'm sure there's lots of businesses that say we absolutely need migration, James.
Yeah, they would. And I think the problem with immigration and migration is that, as JJ says, we have actually conflated a whole load of very difficult topics together in one, and we've made it toxic. And for that, I blame our politicians for not having been honest about what the issues are, and also about how they've treated immigration. They've used immigration, in my view, like quantitative easing. So quantitative easing, the printing of money in order to get yourself out of a quick fix problem. So you've printed more money into the economy, boom, that solved the financial crisis. And it's the same with immigration. Boom, we've got a problem in terms of the number of nurses or carers or people to pick and do all these various things. And we've used immigration to solve that problem quickly. And we've had two negative impacts. That first of all, we haven't planned for it. And secondly, we've undermined the wage economy of this nation, making it, of course, businesses like it because it's cheaper to employ somebody from overseas and they might be better qualified than people here. And we haven't concentrated on trying to do the difficult stuff, getting people back to work, having been off work and taking benefits, making sure that we've got an immigration system that is quick and efficient when it comes to, you set the rules, you can't have people sat there for 2, 3, 4 years or just getting out of the system because it's not working. And then suddenly you find that you have ranges of people who are here illegally, and perhaps they were here legally first because they came over on student visas. And also you have daft rules that allow any kind of family member to think that they can come along with the student who's paying their fees. It's good for the university system. It's good for us.
And then we've had
dependence.
Yes, but it has to be dependence. But it's taken them a while to tighten it up. So what I would say is that because immigration has become so toxic, I think we need to detoxify. We need to actually have a proper conversation about what we genuinely need and about what different people want and why they want it. And then also you have to look at the net migration figures. They are the ones that have gone up exponentially. And you cannot have integration within our nation if you have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people arriving in 1 year.
Why not?
Because it's very difficult to integrate people into the schooling system, into the hospital system, into the housing system, to find them places to live. In terms of across the nation, it's just physically, it's very difficult. It's rather like if you're having a party and you
I love your analogy.
and you invite
always surround having a party.
Okay,
so
you're
having a party.
Having a party, and say you've invited 50 people.
Yep.
If 50 people all turn up on your doorstep at the same moment, you've got a crush about where to put the coats, getting the drinks, getting the snacks, where to put them all. Whereas if they arrive, you know, nice and gently, you can integrate everybody together and put them in their groups and circulate and do all that stuff in the same way. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. You invite somebody to your home and you don't give them sheets, you don't give them bedding, you don't give them any fresh towels and say, here, help yourselves. And by the way, there's no food in the fridge. Guess what? You're going to have some people who are really upset.
I want to get to the calls.
You know I'm right.
Terry from Kent, Darren from Swansea, you're both up first. We'll hear from Terry from Kent first. What's your view when it comes to the overview of immigration in this country? Has it been positive or negative?
Yeah, we need him in this country. You know, I mean, the people talking about, oh, get the people off the dole to go to work, things only 10% or 1% of them people have got the qualifications to go into the nursing homes or the hospitals. So we need people from outside with the skills to do the job. You know, and that's otherwise, if you don't, you're going to end up with nursing homes, hospitals closing because you haven't got this qualifications on the staff to do the jobs.
Darren from Swansea, you disagree with Terry. Explain why.
Cheers, Terry. But I think that it's great if you've got these. We do need these people to fill these jobs, obviously, but you have to have the infrastructure first to deal with it. If you're just inviting people in, you need housing for them. You need a well-working. For instance, you've got waiting lists for housing. You've got waiting lists on the NHS. You've got waiting lists for everything. It's great to have these people here, but when we can deal with them, and when we can actually
infrastructure in place to house them, Darren. I'm going to put that to Terry. Terry, so that's great. We need people in here to do those jobs, but we've got nowhere to house them. We've got no provisions for them for the NHS because they'll be waiting a year for any kind of treatment. We need to get the infrastructure in place first.
Oh, yeah, but the thing is, that's been down to all the governments in the past. We're not building enough houses or infrastructure, and that goes for everything. But the thing is, if you turn around and say, right, we can't have no one coming in because we haven't got nowhere for them to go, you're going to end up with the hospitals closing because you need the staff now. You're not in 10 years' time, which is going to take that similar length of time to get the houses built for the amount of people we need to come in this country to work.
So, Darren, we don't have time to wait to get that infrastructure in place. And also, if we do wait, these businesses close, then we have an economic problem. Then you're less likely to have the money to put into the infrastructure in order to do it.
But you've still got the same issue. You've still got the same issue as you had before with housing. You've still got that. Is why there is a toxic feeling towards this because people are on housing lists. People are waiting ages to get people are waiting to get their kids into school places. You've got people that are basically waiting for doctor's appointments.
I totally hear what you're saying. I think the school's an interesting one because actually I keep hearing conflating reports on that. Some people saying that there's not enough children in certain school areas and too many in others. Yeah. Is that true, JJ?
That's true. I live in Hackney. 3 schools that are in primary schools immediately near me have all shut down in the past year.
Because there's not enough children for it, which is bizarre when we hear that there's too many people coming to this country. Terry and Darren, thank you very much both for your call. Howard from London, you're up next. Immigration, negative or positive for Britain?
It's positive because last Friday I just had a nose operation and that was at Lewisham Hospital, and I can't praise the staff highly enough, and most of them were immigrants. Mm-hmm. So I think this country has to realise how much we do rely on immigrants and how brilliant they are. And as I said, I can't praise them high enough. I can't see any problem. This idea that, say, Farage has got one in, one out. If a nurse, you have to wait for a nurse to leave before you get a nurse in. The whole thing is ludicrous.
I hear what you're saying, Howard James.
Can I ask a question though, Howard? Because I think there is an issue here, which is, first of all, if you don't train enough people here, then of course you have to bring them in from elsewhere. But then what about the countries where they're coming from? So those countries around the world who have trained up these staff to be nurses and healthcare assistants and doctors and all that, and they're coming from overseas here because we pay them more. Well, what happens to their home country? Do you not care that they've suddenly got a shortage of health workers?
Well, that's to be honest, what happens in our own country and what they do in our own country is irrelevant to what we need in this country.
OK, Howard, but that's taking... But forgive me for this, that's taking quite a self-centred approach, isn't it? That we're like, well, we don't mind plundering all your skilled resources in your country and leaving you with sparse healthcare, because we're not training people in our own.
So the end result then is you don't say, we don't allow any nurses in because that country has got its own problems with its nurses. So we don't let them in, so we have a problem. And we end up with this problem we got now. And when someone talks about we should be training up our own nurses, it's going to require a colossal amount of effort to do that.
But maybe, Howard, and just going back to what you said, they've got their own problems with nurses. We are their problem when it comes to their nurses and their medical teams and staffs. But you're right, in order to get the amount of British people into our NHS, it will take a colossal amount of work. Maybe that's something that we need to do.
So are you saying then that we have to look at each country to see whether that country should be allowed to have nurses coming into this country because we don't know whether they've got their own problems?
I've got to side with Howard on this. My mother came to this country. She was trained in Zimbabwe as a nurse and midwife, came to this country because there's a shortage of nurses. My grandma did the same thing, but went to Denmark and did that. People who come from foreign countries to work in this country often send money back to their home country. They are feeding and helping their families and their relatives back home. So them coming here and making money, adding to our economy in this country, whilst also helping people back home, that's a win-win.
But what about the medical resources in their own countries? Because we do hear, I don't know about Zimbabwe, but in other places, they don't have the nurses. They have a nurses shortage now and doctor shortage now too, because we are taking them all. Yeah,
but as Howard says, but at the end of the day, the world is not a selfless place. And the people who are coming from those countries are coming freely because it's a better opportunity for them.
So you need to leave the individual to make a decision as to whether they want to come over?
But also, I think there is another point about the, one in, one out, whether or not that's the right policy, who knows. But I think that there is something to be said. If you have a look at the total number of people who came into the UK last year, which is 1.4 million, and then you look at the number of people who left for whatever reason, it's 600,000 or 700,000 people. So if you're talking about 600,000 or 700,000 people who are coming to the UK in any one particular year, because that's the number of people that are leaving, that is actually quite a lot of people where you can have your skills, you can have the requirements that you need. So if, for example, Howard needs to have more nurses or doctors in your local place, or the NHS needs them in the short term, then I don't think anybody would say no. But I genuinely think we need to provide. Why have we cut the number of nurses and training spots here in this country, training people that, in fact, we should be doing what we used to do elsewhere, which is train more people in this country and then they can go elsewhere, and people complained about that. So whichever way we've done it, I think we've done it wrong, and that's why we've ended up with this need.
Howard, thank you very much for your call. Lucy from Essex, what's your view of immigration? A good one or a bad one?
I believe it's positive and negative.
Sitting on the fence on this one, Lucy. Go on, tell us why.
I mean, they fill jobs, but then the infrastructure isn't there, but then that's down to the government. They know how many people's coming in, and they haven't worked out what to do.
So what do we do, Lucy, if you were in charge for a day?
Well, I would not leave the ECHR for a start, because I think a lot of people are going to be voting in this election based on migrant crisis, cost of living issues. But really, I think it's an election on whether or not we'll leave the ECHR.
You think a lot of people are voting on that basis alone, Lucy?
Well, I think that's what it secretly is about, is that all the main parties are saying that we need to leave the ECHR, and that takes away all of our citizens' rights.
That takes all of our citizens' rights. Well, I think the ECHR, correct me if I'm wrong, the controversy around that is really around the Rwanda project and whether that's going to take off quite literally.
But if we don't care about their rights, we can't care about ours.
You're shaking your head, James, why?
Because it's nonsense. I think the problem... Sorry, Lucy, but look, the issue here is... The question is, who should be making decisions about human rights? Should it be a court in this country or should it be an international court? The ECHR had its job whilst we were part of...
We were part of the ECHR, so it's not a foreign court.
Yes.
We are still a part of it.
Yes, we are still a part of that. And the question is whether we should be making those decisions within these shores. We have one of the most advanced legal systems and judicial systems in the world. We genuinely should be able to make proper human rights decisions in this country.
Our court made the decision that the Rwanda plan was illegal. Our highest court
Yeah,
made
it
that
was the
decision.
Supreme Court.
Listen, I've never advocated that policy because we've now sent two whole people. We've sent, we're hundreds
And
of
they're
millions of
voluntary.
pounds, and that's all we got to show for it. So, I mean, it's an
And
exercise
we
in
had to
how
pay
to
them
get
to do
money,
it.
throw it off the top of a building into a wind.
I just want to speak to
there it
another,
is.
Another viewer on the phone. Lucy, thank you for your call. Gladys from London, I believe you are an immigrant that works for the NHS, is that right?
That's correct. And good morning, everybody on the panel. Yes, I've been in this country for the past 46 years, and I worked for the NHS for 35 years. Mm-hmm. My husband had a minor stroke recently, was admitted to one of the hospitals in South London. And when I visited him, 99%, I can say 99% of the staff that I met were immigrants. Mm-hmm. So what I'm saying is, if there was a magic wand today or tomorrow, and we could all go back to where we came from, the hospitals will have to shut down. If you get on the buses, if you get on the trains, if you go to hotels, restaurants, majority of the people serving there are immigrants. The cleaners.
Quite a lot
so
of industries
if we were
would have
all
to
to
shut
go
down.
back, how is this country going to survive?
But nobody wants that. And I think, Gladys, it's really important. I don't think as far as I'm concerned, I don't think anybody wants that.
Sadly, I think some people do want that, James.
Yeah, maybe some people do, but look, let them carry on with that ridiculous notion. The thing is that if you have a look at what the problem is, if you're saying that 99% of the people within the NHS are migrant workers, this is bonkers, and it means we're not training enough people. Can we fix it overnight? No. But have we got to face up to what we need in this country, what we need to train, what we need to pay for, how we need to look after our staff, how we need to staff everything? Absolutely we do. And yes, of course we rely on overseas. And I've said before, I'll say it again, if it wasn't for immigration, I wouldn't be here, JJ wouldn't be here. I mean, television would be devoid, it'd just be blank screens. There'd be nothing here, Gladys. So look, big up the immigrants, but I think we've got to face up to the fact that we have a genuine problem. And the genuine problem is that there's a difference between good immigration and bad immigration, in the same way that there is with good debt, good money, bad money.
I think now you're going to have some viewers saying that they would wish that we weren't here now, James, to be honest.
Listen, quite a lot of people say that to me, about me for lots of different reasons.
That's maybe just after this part. OK, Gladys, thank you very much for your call. Thanks for all your calls on this.